All right, and joining me today is James Fitzgerald, who is the lead commissioner for the Ontario Post-Secondary Esports League. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kyle. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well, doing really well. Thanks for joining us. We're all set to talk some video games in the future of the newest sport.
Yeah, esports is definitely, exciting, and it's one of those things where, we don't really know the direction it's fully headed in. So we're just excited to be a part of it in this, early stage of development.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, for those who might not know what esports is that are listening right now, because we've got a variety of different age groups that listen to the podcast there, in a nutshell, what is esports?
Yeah, so esports, just akin to sports, it's competition. But in sports, your traditional median for that competition is athletics, be it, hockey, soccer, football. In esports, it's video games. So it's digital competitions. And the athletes will play in games such as Rocket League, League of Legends, Hearthstone, and Overwatch.
Okay. And so are those sort of the only games you're playing right now, or is there a whole laundry list of things that, do you have, Call of Duty or Halo or League of Legends or whatever going on there as well?
Yeah, I mean it's like you said, it just like sports, there's a laundry list of different titles and it appeals to different people. The same people who watch curling aren't necessarily those who watch, college football, in the same way that the same people that watch League of Legends aren't necessarily people that watch Call of Duty. So in our inaugural season here at OPSE, we focused on four titles that I sort of call Disney Channel safe.
Hmm.
And that's Overwatch, Hearthstone, League of Legends, and Rocket League. And really, that's because we're trying to do something new with it, which is get the schools involved sort of from a top-down approach, get their athletics departments involved, get their brands behind it. And we wanted to make sure that, with an inaugural season, it was something where the schools were comfortable getting involved and getting engaged with this, just because it's so new to them.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, being the Ontario post-secondary esports leagues, there you guys are an Ontario-based league and whatnot. Are there similar sort of factions going on in whatever Quebec or out in British Columbia, or are you guys sort of unique in Canada right now as far as being an organized post-secondary venue?
It's pretty unique from the Canada side of things, right? Like I like to say we're the only one, but with the way that this industry, goes, someone could start something up tomorrow, or maybe they started it up yesterday. There's a lot of similar organizations that sort of come from the athletic conferences in the US, but because of the way Canada is with its collegiate athletics associations and stuff, there's almost a barrier between them, between the college space and the university space.
Hmm.
And we realized that, we wanted to break that barrier down. We wanted to have, the St. Clair Saints play against the Waterloo Warriors, or the Fanshawe Falcons play against the Western Mustangs. And, that couldn't happen in a football game or a soccer game or a hockey game. Even though a school like Fanshawe and Western, they're right across the street from each other, right? The
Hmm.
students have a rivalry. There's local rivalries within London, Ontario itself, but they would never have any form of competition. And so for the first year ever, we're actually able to provide that. And it's great to see sort of, the engagement within the community, but also just the skill level being performed by these student athletes. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So format wise, are you guys sort of like golf in the sense, or tennis, where everything's an individual tournament, or are teams sort of competing for, okay, we won this event, so we get X number of points in the standings, and there's, a national championship at the end or something? Like, how is the league sort of formatted?
We actually take a lot of our, format inspiration from, your major sports, your NBAs, your NHLs, in the sense that we sort of run from September all the way through to the end of April,
Mhm.
with a preseason to start things off. Schools can build their rosters, run training camps, try out, new players. With the regular season starting up in October, and then that regular season runs all the way out through to mid end of February, and then we enter our playoffs. And so at the end of the year, you'll have a provincial champion for each of those four titles.
Okay, so it's not like all the games are counting towards one total team score. Then you'll have four sort of standalone champions at the end of the season. Then.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's one of those things where the schools will be definitely proud if they can win more than one. Just like imagine if the Raptors and Leafs could both win a championship in the same year. They're
Yeah.
not related, but the city pride behind it would be there, and the same way that the school pride behind it would be there.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's COVID, right? People aren't getting together in large numbers. So obviously, everything's being done sort of online and streaming and all of that for you guys right now, I would assume, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the benefits of this type of league. You don't need to go out and rent training facilities or rent an arena to play the game. We don't need to have students travel to play against students from other schools. We're able to do it all digitally, do it from the comfort of their own homes. And then some schools do have esports facilities that they're able to use and get their students together. But really, students are able to play from the safety of their own house right now. And then we're remotely broadcasting the matches 4 nights a week on our Twitch channel.
Okay, okay. So, I mean, if there wasn't this whole, global pandemic going on, and let's say money wasn't sort of a factor, is the end goal to sort of have that, provincial championship or end of year championship sort of being more of an in-person experience where people would come together and it would be sort of similar to, it's the Counter-Strike World Championships or League of Legends. You sort of sometimes see there's actually fans watching on screens and all that, or do you see everything sort of remaining digital?
Oh, totally. If money wasn't a question, time, resources wasn't a question, we'd want to be able to sort of mirror this league and regionally across Canada, have a national championship, have live events. There for people who don't necessarily know esports too well, they might think that it's something where you're in your basement by yourself, or maybe you're just like on a couch with friends, but it's just like sports in the sense that there's live events with hundreds of thousands of people in attendance. The viewership numbers digitally are higher than even the Super Bowl for the World Championships and stuff.
Mhm.
I know a couple years back, I think 2016, the League of Legends North American finals were held in the ACC in Toronto, and the 22,000 person ACC sold out within 15 minutes or something, right? So it's one of those things where just because it's a digital medium doesn't mean that there isn't a community aspect to it. People want to get together. People want to see their favorite players live. People want to experience the event, live in person. There's definitely a big difference between watching, say, a hockey game on TV and then being in the arena. The atmosphere
Mhm.
of the players, the atmosphere of the fans. It's a magical feeling, and that's something we can recreate in esports once we're actually able to do that safely.
Yeah, yeah. So how many events do you guys have under your belt at this point then?
In terms of this season, right, we're running those four main leagues. It's Hearthstone, Overwatch, League of Legends, and Rocket League. And so those seasons are going out throughout the whole year. Depending on the interest, from schools and publishers, we might be able to run some one-offs, test the water on some different titles. I don't want to sort of spoil anything there, but we have some potential things in the work,
Mhm.
and we'll see how things go from there. It's one of those things where, because we don't really know what's going on with COVID, we don't plan to have any sort of live component to any part of this season per se. Even the finals, maybe that will change if things change the next few months. But for now, we're sticking to a fully digital environment. But the team's got lots of experience doing live events. We've worked on major events like DreamHack, EGLX. All these things are going to be nothing to half of your audience, but these are major LAN events from across North America. With hundreds of thousands of people. We've got people who've worked production, people who've worked stages, people who've worked boothing. It's amazing the amount of talent we have working on this team right now, and we're just excited to be able to bring all these people together to really build the foundation and create opportunity for students and such in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And when you guys are running these online there and streaming them on your Twitch channels, is it a closed private channel where you have to be a student at one of these institutions to tune in, or is it just wide open and anyone and their grandma can watch these go down?
Yeah, it's totally wide open. Just on Twitch TV, the channel is OPS Esports, just like our website. And we're doing 4 to 5 hours a night, 4 nights a week. So we're talking 16 to 20 hours of coverage of esports content a week, and we're getting hundreds of viewers. If I can pull up some metrics here, look at the insight, and sort of look at how just in the last month alone, we've had 142,000 minutes watched.
Yeah.
of esports content with this league in its inaugural season, and that to me is just like a mind-blowing number.
Yeah.
And it's just great to see the thousands of people tuning in to cheer for their school or to cheer for their friends or to just watch a game that they love. And that's just awesome that we can still do that and have that community engagement during these tough times.
Yeah, yeah. Has one of the titles been sort of more popular than the others so far in terms of actually getting people to tune in and watch?
Mm. I don't want to say that necessarily, just because a lot of it comes down to what's sort of happened in the season,
Yeah.
right? There's school rivalries that if their match for the season has happened already, they usually get a bigger boon. We had the Carleton Ravens play against the Ottawa UGGs, for example, and that match, big rivalry in Ottawa, so there's well over 200 concurrent viewers during that match, and that's great to see. So we'll just hope to keep those rivalries up as we go through the year. We're not going to get a Queens Gales versus Western Mustangs football game, but we'll see them play in League of Legends this year, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like from an audience perspective. And at the end of the day, this is something completely new. No one's ever done it before, so we don't really have any estimates to go off of. It's really hard to forecast what the engagement's going to be like, but we just see the interest growing, and we're just going to continue to produce the best possible product for people who are interested.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Anytime you get the GGs and the Ravens together, there's always a little bit of room for fireworks for sure. But I mean, especially I would say maybe after 2010 was sort of the tipping point that I sort of noticed as far as esports going from, okay, it's sort of a fringe thing and all the South Koreans are watching it and going crazy for StarCraft and all that, to more of a mainstream, you've got Drake buying esports teams and all these other athletes and all that sort of starting up their own esports teams. What do you attribute, maybe the main two or three things that have changed just in the last decade that have sort of brought it to the forefront of, being the next big thing in sports?
I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to accessibility. And the big thing that sort of changed, around the turn of the 2010s is just it's internet technology, especially around broadcasting. And you see it in sports as well, how, you were moving from having very exclusive, games on certain channels. You'll get local blackouts to, oh, I can buy a package and watch every single NHL game that happened. I can go and just stream them to my my Apple TV or my phone or things like that.
Mhm.
So, when that happened, it really let people, I guess, showcase competitions in a way that it didn't happen before in the West. The reason it took off in South Korea is because back in the day, they were putting it on, those TV channels. So those esports players were being treated like athletes, and not the most popular. You're not talking, soccer players, or football players, but think of it, maybe a more comparison to golf, where there's definitely, more niche, but it's a very dedicated fan base, and there's a lot of interest there, especially because of how accessible the games are. A lot of these games are now, they went to a free to play model. So, if you're looking to get better at the game, where are you going to look? You're going to look towards the professional scene, in the same way that, a young kid in his driveway working on his wrist shot is like, oh, I want to shoot the puck like Crosby. There's a young kid watching on Twitch, and they're like, oh man, I want to play mid lane like Faker. Because of how accessible things are through Twitch compared to sports, you're going to get a lot more engagement with the audience there, and that's the part that's really interesting to me, because you're never going to have an opportunity to say, I'll use the Crosby example again. You'll never have the opportunity to just watch Crosby during practice and send him messages and interact with him. And in the other direction, Crosby can only interact back with so many of his fans. But in the esports space, you get a lot more of that back and forth, and people feel a lot closer to their idols, and they can emulate their idols, and it causes them to just a positive feedback loop. They enjoy the game more. They want to play the game more. They play the game more. They want to get better. They want to get better. They watch their player. The player inspires them to play the game more, and it just sort of loops there. So it's really interesting to me just to see how that evolves and develops. And as that audience grows, it means that the potential money in the industry grows, because at the end of the day, everything, sports or esports, it's all marketing dollars. It's all about eyeballs. So as that audience grows, it means that the marketing investment's going to grow, which means that they can invest more into the infrastructure. And it's just, a positive cycle that, like you said, from 2010 really started to explode. And here we are 10 years later, and, the possibilities are endless. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, sort of in that same vein there, in terms of the marketing and the dollars behind it there, is it a realistic thing to say that we could be potentially seeing in the future, these universities and colleges handing out actual scholarships similar to, athletic scholarships and whatnot, to get some of the better esports player to come and, study at their university and join their teams and whatnot as well too?
Would you believe me if I said it was already happening?
Well, there you go. See, these are things that I'm not aware of, and I know a lot of our audience probably isn't aware of. But this is just, again, leading more to the fact that this is, we're sort of standing at the doorstep of the next big thing here, right? So though it might not get as much fanfare as a 5-star recruit signing at a Div 1 school or something like that, the fact that this is still happening. I've heard some stories that it's happening in the States already. Is it happening in Canada as well too, or is that sort of just getting going now?
Oh, just like athletics, the collegiate scene in the US is just, it's miles above us, just because there's more money there, right?
Yeah.
As much as I love, the athletics side of Canada, it's so minuscule because between, all the branding money that goes into it, just looking at a college football game, if just, I'm just, you can look at the head count and just turn that into a dollar figure. And, based on that, you can see how much more money the US has to invest compared to, anything outside of the Panda game in Canada. You're not going to get a sold out stadium for football. So, in the same sense, esports is just like that. There's, Americans who, they've been giving out full rides, but at the same time, for the esports side, there are Canadian schools like Durham College, St. Clair College, who are, offering scholarships, who are, actively recruiting students. And, it's great to see, because that's sort of the, I guess, the, projected model is to sort of take the best of sports and sort of roll from there. Because there's a lot of value to schools to winning these national championships, to developing, ecosystems for themselves, and just in general to promoting, their school as, an esports hub. Who's going to be the next Alabama, but for esports?
Yeah.
That race is totally open right now, so you can almost cement yourself in history if you get in early and have, success on a national level, and that's gonna, snowball, like I said before, just to having, you have success means that players are going to look to your college or university to attend, and that, creates more success, and it again snowballs from there. You can have the best esports program, in the nation. So people are definitely doing that in the States. They're starting to look more and more into doing that on the Canadian side. But to justify doing that on the Canadian side, they really needed, some sort of local regional competition, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to actually provide that, reason for schools to invest, that reason for schools to, go and create a long-term plan where they can actually buy in and just build up a program.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, we're still in the infancy stages of a lot of this being your inaugural season that you guys are launching and all that there. But I mean, looking into the future, do you see it sort of being a slow burn, or is it going to be within the first couple of seasons that we start seeing that flip start to happen? Because as you mentioned, the Canadian system is a little bit behind what's happening down south of the border there. So is it 5 years out that we start seeing scholarships being normalized? Is it 10 years out, or is it just around the corner, in your opinion?
It's just so hard to say, especially with esports. Like, I could have given you a different answer 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely could have given you a different answer, 9 months ago. So we'll see how everything sort of develops. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing we're trying to move around is sort of just that politics of it. There's already enough politics within the college sports side between what's a varsity sport, what's not a varsity sport. Then you start throwing video games in there, and there's been sports sitting on the we want to be varsity backlog for 20 years, and
Yeah.
now you're telling me that these gamers are varsity athletes. What is this? And oh my goodness, there's just so much. I don't want to call it drama, but just complications that go around with these schools and their internal politics. So we don't want to tell them that there's a right way to do anything, because at the end of the day, we don't know. We're learning about this industry as much as they are, because it just changes every day. 10 years may sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, especially when we compare it to sports, 10 years is nothing in terms of how things develop over time. So at the end of the day, we just want people to do things right and not create any sort of like artificial bubble around games and esports. We want to make sure that when schools are making an investment and they're actually getting set for a long-term plan, that they don't get scared after year one and decide, what, esports isn't for us. We want to make sure that we can sort of keep the process safe for them and make sure that we can have sustainable success over the long term.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you're taking esports seriously here, and whether you're trying to compete at sort of the post-secondary level, or even take that next level and become professional and monetize it and whatnot here, on a typical day, how many hours are you spending sort of perfecting your craft and actually playing that game?
Well, I mean, it's going to depend on the person, the level. There's just so much behind it. The biggest thing though is just it's a matter of quality versus quantity, right? Like you could spend 10 hours a day working on your wrist shot in the driveway, or you could spend 4 hours a day in the gym training and lifting weights, or you could spend 2 hours a day playing shinny, right? You're going to get different sort of results out of different activities there.
Yeah.
The big thing that makes esports, I guess, different from sports is that it's a lot less drills and a lot more game scenarios and scrimmages. And the biggest reason on that is the majority of esports titles have non-neutral states. So in a hockey game, for example, even if you're in a tie game, or you're up 2 goals or you're down 3 goals, at the end of the day, the puck drops to center ice and both teams are on even playing fields. With a lot of esports, you sort of build up an advantage throughout the game, or you're managing some sort of resource, and from there you end up I guess building that lead slowly and then winning some objective which wins you the game. So because of that, there's a lot more, I guess, game scenarios, so it's harder to just have I guess a playbook. In scenario X we do Y.
Mhm.
You can do that in football, you can do that in hockey, you can do that in soccer, basketball, but you don't inherently, if you're up 10 points, you don't suddenly jump an extra 30 centimeters because you're winning by 10 points. But in
Mhm.
esports, that's kind of what happens in a lot of the games. So it's definitely a different mentality there, and players do end up training 8-10 hours, 12 hours a day, even if they're professionals. So we always stress in the collegiate scene that they're student athletes, and the student part comes first more than anything. So it's a matter of balancing your studies, balancing your life, as well as still being able to practice with your team, practice on your own, and at the end of the day not get burnt out from the competition you love.
Yeah, yeah. So for any of the parents that are listening to this right now and are hearing, oh, eight hours of video games a day, oh my god, da, 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 da. What would you say to them, as far as the fact that it's come a long way from 20 years ago, where video games was essentially a pastime, it was a way to kill time, right? But whereas now there's actually avenues to monetize it there. So like, for example, you might not know the exact figures offhand there, but like what kind of dollars are we talking about, people coming and bringing in at some of the highest levels, the world championships, or some of the major tournaments that go on there?
We're well into the 7 figures, right?
Yeah.
For like in terms of yearly salaries. And then you can start looking at the content creator side of things as well, or even the support staff. And it is leaning towards that sports side. I don't want to talk numbers too much, because I do feel like there is a bit of in venture capitalist inflation going on right now. So we'll see how all things balance out at the end of the day. But it is the same way as sports. And when you look at, someone trying to go pro in the NHL, they're going to spend 8 to 10 hours a day training. But maybe a lot of that, involves the parents, driving them around from hockey game to hockey game or from practice to practice, or maybe they're up at 6 a.m. going to power skating or something like that. Even on the gaming side, if they're not trying to go professional, like the biggest thing I always tell parents is like, would you get upset at your kid if they were, writing creative writing for 10 hours a day, working on novels, or if they were reading for 10 hours a day? At the end of the day, there's a lot of positive benefits and skills that can be developed through gaming, and esports is definitely one of the big ones there, in the same way that sports can build, things like team building and leadership skills and communication. Esports can sort of do the same thing there. And it's just a matter of, take everything in moderation, because at the end of the day, anything in, too much excess is going to be unhealthy for you. But if you are trying to get something positive out of anything, you can do it.
Yeah. So there you go, mom and dad. There, you can breathe easy. Timmy's going to be just fine if he's playing video games in the basement. There, you don't need to panic. So
Timmy's going to be just fine. But like the biggest thing to me is just, look at it from the sports side. I see a lot of people who say, I want to go into gaming, or I want to go into esports. They always come at me, what college program should I take? What university program should I take? But you don't see people going, oh, I want to get into sports. What program should I take for sports?
Yeah.
What you should do is find your passion and then see how you can apply it to sports. Is it, a commentator? Is it an analyst? Do we need lawyers? Do we need accountants? It's one of the things where the ecosystem's so massive. Find what you're good at and then figure out how you apply it to esports.
Well, amazing. And for those that are looking to either learn more about your organization or tune in to any of your events, where can people find you? Where can people get more info?
Yeah, so our website, it's opsesports.ca. From there you can check out all of the different teams, all 16 different schools participating in our inaugural season. It's got links to all of our social medias, our Twitch channel, and we're live on that channel 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, with a different game every night. I think, it's a Friday tonight, so we've got Rocket League going on, and we're always looking forward to that. And it's a great experience for all of the students involved, all the volunteers, the players, the broadcast booth. Like I said, just it's esports. There's so many different, role opportunities that it's not just the players, it's not just the coaches. Just like sports, there's, a whole system to make everything actually run.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, James. And for those that are interested, make sure you go and check out the website today, and maybe take in a match or two as well, too.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.